Mr. Secretary, this war is stuck. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. The Iranian regime is in place. The nuclear material still in their hands. Americans are being crushed by higher costs, and it's not clear to them at all what the goal of this war is. So, I've got about a minute, and I want to go to another topic. I saw your hearing yesterday, and I'm going to give you one more chance to address a question here.
What you are seeing right now in America is a senator and former Navy combat pilot standing face to face with the Secretary of Defense, reading the definition of a war crime directly from the Defense Department's own manual while watching him refuse to answer the question. That is the situation unfolding right now. And the reason it matters to you is simple. Your tax dollars are funding this war. Your gas prices have gone up because of this war. Your grocery costs keep rising because of this war. And the man overseeing it all just appeared before Congress and twice refused to clearly say that killing prisoners is wrong. That man is Pete Hegseth. And now he may have seriously damaged his own future because Senator Mark Kelly is no longer just asking tough questions. He is taking legal action. And if that lawsuit succeeds, Hegseth's career may not simply come to an end. It could end with accusations tied to war crimes hanging over his name. Here is what just happened.
Safe to say that our weapons like SM-3s, Tomahawks, Patriot missiles have capabilities that are unmatched. That's why they cost a lot, take a long time to produce. Your budget requests $31.8 billion to expand production capacity for critical missile stockpiles. Is that correct? 31.8?
I'm looking at $53 billion for munitions acceleration over 14 critical munitions, of which the ones you listed are a part.
Okay,
so
53.
More than that. Yes.
More than 20 billion more. So we've been working together to grow the industrial base because we're all worried about how our stockpiles would hold up in a conflict against China. Since the start of this war, you've made it a point to highlight the number of strikes the U.S. military is carrying out, citing that more than 13,000 targets have been struck as of April 8th. On March 2nd, you said, and this is a quote, "This was a massive, overwhelming attack across all domains of warfare, striking more than 1,000 targets in the first 24 hours. On March 10th, you said, "Yet again, our most intense day of strikes inside of Iran." On April 6th, you said, and this is another quote, "The largest volume of strikes since day one of this operation." Your department has released video after video of things blowing up. None of us doubt the strength of the U.S. military and their ability to do hard things. I understand that better than anybody. The questions we should be asking and answering are, what does this cost us and what does it achieve for the American people? Many of these strikes use our best weapons, and we're using a lot of them, and a lot of interceptors. Open source reporting has estimated that the military has used an outrageous number of Patriots. I'm not even going to say the numbers, but a lot of Patriots, a lot of THAAD rounds, JASSM-ER, Tomahawks, very expensive, exquisite. We can't make these munitions overnight, and it's clear from your budget request that you know that. Can you tell us how many years specifically is it going to take to replace these systems?
Senator, thank you for the question. I would defer to the comptroller on the amount because I think it's a lot higher than 53. If you look at long-range fires, JASSMs, LRASMs, Tomahawks, we're looking at 238 billion.
Okay,
we're looking at 40 billion for hypersonic. So I actually think it's closer to 330 billion in munitions.
Okay, how many years to replenish? That's the question.
I think that's exactly the right question, too, Senator, because the time frame we were existing under was unacceptable.
Okay, well,
what this budget does, months and years.
Vast years.
I mean, we're building new plants in real time.
So just to replace what we have expended.
I said months.
And then you said years.
Well, it depends on the weapon system, but 2 to 3, 4x of what we have today. Okay. So yes, we're dealing with the reality under the previous administration of what they sent to Ukraine and what they allocated elsewhere.
Okay, I got it. So we fired years worth of munitions. And it is clear that these are being expended to try to achieve some objectives. That was the plan. But, Mr. Secretary, this war is stuck. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. The Iranian regime is in place. The nuclear material is still in their hands. Americans are being crushed by higher costs. And it's not clear to them at all what the goal of this war is. So, I've got about a minute, and I want to go to another topic. I saw your hearing yesterday, and I'm going to give you one more chance to address a question here. It's my understanding that the definition of no quarter is that legitimate offers of surrender will be refused, or that detainees will be executed. Is that your understanding of the definition?
About the only entity that would kill detainees or target civilians is the Iranians, and they're the ones being crushed.
So you,
Iranian military and their military capability.
The question is,
I disagree completely with your articulation.
No, do you understand the definition that I just read you? Because that's the definition from your department's Law of War manual. Is that your understanding? And I'm gonna just get to the point here.
We fight to win and we follow the law, Senator.
Okay, so your quote was, "We will keep pushing, keep advancing, no quarter, no mercy for our enemies." And yesterday, you did not clarify whether you stand by this statement. So I'm going to give you another opportunity to clarify if that is what you meant. Do you stand by that statement you made on March 13th?
We have untied the hands of our warfighters. We fight to win, and we follow the law.
Okay, so you're not clarifying. So you stand by that statement. So you're the Secretary of Defense. The things you say matter. And your response here, right now, makes it clear to the American people exactly why you are not right for this job.
It makes it clear to our enemies, Senator.
Watch this moment carefully. Senator Mark Kelly, a combat veteran, retired Navy captain, and former astronaut, looks Pete Hegseth directly in the eye and reads him the legal definition of no quarter. He does not invent the wording. He reads it straight from the Defense Department's own Law of War manual. The definition is direct and disturbing. No quarter means surrender will not be accepted or that prisoners will be executed. Kelly then asks one simple question. Do you understand that definition? Hegseth responds by saying, and this is not being paraphrased, that the only group targeting civilians or killing detainees is the Iranians. That is not an answer. That is an attempt to avoid the question completely. It sounds like a man who fully understands what he said and refuses to walk it back. Because this goes back to what Hegseth himself said publicly on March 13 during a Pentagon briefing. He declared, "We will keep pushing, keep advancing, no quarter, no mercy for our enemies." That phrase is not just aggressive language. No quarter is a legally recognized term under international humanitarian law. It conflicts with the Geneva Conventions, the International Criminal Court Rome Statute, and can fall under the War Crimes Act of 1996. Kelly gave him another opportunity right there in the hearing room and asked if he stood by the statement. Hegseth answered by saying they had untied the hands of warfighters, that America fights to win, and that the military follows the law. That was not a clarification. To many watching, it sounded like confirmation. Kelly immediately pointed that out and said, "You're not clarifying, so you stand by that statement." Then he delivered a line that should have grabbed the country's attention. He told Hegseth that as Secretary of Defense, the things he says matter, and that his response made it clear why he was not the right person for the job. In that moment, a United States senator openly questioned whether the man leading the American military was fit to hold that position, and Hegseth had no real response. But the larger story here goes far beyond a single hearing or one controversial phrase. This is tied to a legal battle that could permanently damage Hegseth's career. Before this hearing ever happened, Hegseth reportedly went after Kelly aggressively. He accused him of sedition, launched efforts to strip him of his retired Navy captain rank, attempted to reduce his retirement pay, and issued a formal censure letter. The reason was that Kelly and several Democratic veterans recorded a video encouraging service members to reject illegal orders. Hegseth labeled that as sedition, but a federal judge viewed it very differently. Senior U.S. District Judge Richard Leon, who was appointed by George W. Bush, ruled that Hegseth's actions amounted to unconstitutional retaliation. The judge stated that Kelly's First Amendment rights were being violated and that the Pentagon had targeted clearly protected speech. A Washington grand jury also refused to indict Kelly. So after bringing in the Department of Justice and using the power of the federal government against a sitting senator, Hegseth still lost. Now Kelly's lawsuit remains active, and the Senate hearing may have added even more weight to it. On camera and under oath, Hegseth refused twice to clearly state that killing detainees is wrong. He refused to clearly explain whether no quarter reflected American policy, and he avoided directly confirming that U.S. troops are bound by international law. In a federal courtroom, those moments could seriously damage a person's reputation. At the same time, pressure around Hegseth continues to grow. Several Democratic lawmakers have already introduced articles of impeachment accusing him of abuse of power and possible war crimes. Meanwhile, the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, tensions with Iran continue, nuclear concerns remain unresolved, and Americans are still feeling rising fuel and grocery prices. Reports also point to growing American casualties, with service members killed and hundreds more wounded. During testimony, Hegseth reportedly warned Congress that the conflict could continue for several more weeks and that additional American casualties were likely. He even stated that those losses would strengthen U.S. resolve. Then the hearing shifted toward another major concern, the growing munitions crisis. Senator Kelly raised alarms over the massive use of Patriot missiles, Tomahawks, JASSM systems, and other advanced weapons being consumed at a rapid pace. These are expensive systems that take years to replace. Hegseth himself acknowledged that the military could face roughly $330 billion in munition spending, while production capacity remains far below what would be needed to quickly restock supplies. In other words, the United States is burning through weapons at a rate the country cannot easily recover from while fighting a conflict with no clear ending in sight. And hanging over all of it is the same issue from the beginning, the Secretary of Defense refusing to directly say that executing prisoners is wrong. Critics argue that this is not strength or leadership, but a serious political and legal liability. By the time Hegseth entered that hearing, he was already facing backlash from a federal judge, pressure from impeachment efforts, and criticism over a war with no obvious exit strategy. But when he left that room, he also left behind recorded testimony under oath that opponents say could follow him for years. Mark Kelly's lawsuit is still moving forward, and many believe what happened during that hearing only made the case stronger. If Hegseth eventually loses in court, it may not just cost him politically. It could destroy his credibility as the person leading the most powerful military in the world. Kelly looked him directly in the face and reminded him that the things leaders say matter, and in that moment, Hegseth had no clear answer.